If you were walking along the National Mall hoping to see the memorial of a president who's been alive for the past 100 years, you might be hard-pressed to see it. Because the most recent memorial, established just this September 2020, is of President Dwight D. Eisenhower. However, it's just off on the other street along the National Mall. Today, let's see a closer look at the memorial, the newest memorial to join Washington, D.C.'s memorial in honor of all the national presidents. I'm Ariel, you're watching Urbanist. Let's explore Dwight D. Eisenhower's memorial. 5-star general, the man who got us through World War II, the man who also got us out of the Korean War, and also the President of the United States of America. One of the very first presidents in the 20th century who took a very strong-arm stance against racism. He was a very interesting man, and probably the last president that both sides of the aisle would be in full support of for building a memorial, at least in the near future. Let's walk across the street to the memorial. So I'm across the street at the Smithsonian National Air and Space Museum, which is currently closed, but this way is the mall. And if you are visiting Washington, D.C., you might miss this, because the memorial isn't as kind of huge and monumental as Lincoln's memorial, or as a mark on the skyline as the Washington Monument. This one is a bit more subtle, I would say. And that's why it might be a little bit hard to miss, including, it's not even mentioned the guidebooks, unless if you buy a guidebook that might be written this upcoming year, because it was just dedicated. So let's take a closer look. And hello, Kay. Kay's back. Kay, hope all is well. Hello, Susu. Hello, Rafael. From Brazil. Hello, Rosalyn. And LL Hi says, right, yeah, Eisenhower was elected because the country wanted to crack down on communism, because the ones before him were too soft on communism. Yes, he was a 5-star general and known for being a very strong leader. So that was, I would say that probably was one of the main factors for him being re-elected, or elected in the first place. Early afternoon to you too, not today, welcome. Hello, Susu, Elisa, Todd, Irene, Docio, TJ, Torbu, Ronald, ¿cómo está acá? More adventure. Is this your last day in DC? Indeed it is. Indeed it is. Hello, Cecil from Copenhagen. Hello, Natalia. Nice to see you here. So here's a huge obelisk, or not obelisk, a cylindrical monument. It takes place this entire area right in front of the Department of Education building. Dwight D. Eisenhower Memorial. And they do have like a welcome center. I wish it was open. Maybe they do open. It says they'll be back at 2 p.m. That's awesome. Dwight D. Eisenhower Memorial. Groundbreaking, November 2nd, 2017, and it was dedicated just a little bit more than a month ago, September 17th, 2020. So very, very close by. And it looks a little bit soulless. I think the building behind it looks a little bit soulless. But we'll take a closer look. Let's see how it is. This is my first time visiting it up close. So this is the Department of Education, which Dwight D. Eisenhower had a strong hand in developing, along with many other governmental departments such as NASA who's associated with the government and does space exploration, and of course other departmental functions. But also, it's rather fitting that this is built in front of the Department of Education building, while it is not the most pleasant building to see. I mean, it doesn't really say much. Dwight D. Eisenhower, he was a 5-star general. And despite him being a 5-star general, he was actually very against war. He wanted to keep peace as much as possible. So, pro tip, there are public restrooms. They're just right behind here. And look at these benches. Ooh, monumental benches. We're gonna check out the bench a little bit later. Oh, and there's a free audio tour. Oh, that's so cool. Look at that. Hello, Robert. Hello, Carmen. The Space Force. Space Force is, I think, something slightly different from NASA. I sent you some things to help if you're planning on your UK trip. I appreciate it, Aiden. Elisa, thank you so much for the stars. Susu, hope you had a good morning. I really did. Will you be going to the museums as you stated? Yes, 3 p.m. will be the Museum of American History. It looks cold. I mean, the architecture without emotions. Yeah, well, oh, it's like hollow. It has an echo to it. I wonder what's in here. So Dwight D. Eisenhower right here. Oh, bench test will be coming soon. Stay tuned. 1953 to 1961, 34th President of the United States of America. So it's rather fitting that he's right in front of the Department of Education, because Dwight D. Eisenhower was very against war, despite him getting us through World War II. He also was the man who had the invasion of D-Day, which is most famously depicted in the film Saving Private Ryan by Steven Spielberg and starring Tom Hanks. That invasion really kick-started America's winning streak for World War II in Europe. However, once he became president, he wanted to do his very best to keep this peace, which is interesting because you would think that a general elected president of the United States of America would be a man who's going to take advantage of America's high status now as a super world power and invade other countries, not just with Korea, but go into China, go into the Middle East. And it was very close for him to go into the Middle East as well. But he decided to not go into China, decided to pull out from Korea, and decided to not get involved in further wars abroad. The Cold War was ramping up, but he wanted to let it remain cold. And that's why he ramped up with intelligence operations rather than full-out war and battles. Much to the chagrin of Joseph Stalin, who was much of a fan of continuing battles as well. However, in Little Rock, Arkansas, a few children were admitted to school, and they were African Americans. And at that time in America, in that area of southern U.S., there was segregation in the schools, and they were unable to attend a school that had white students. They had to go to an all-black school, and the all-black school tended to be very poor, and sometimes it was very far away from where they lived. People screamed, jeered, tried, do everything in their power, even attempted assault to prevent these African American children to go into a newly desegregated school. And Dwight D. Eisenhower sent in the military. And this might sound like some strong-armed president trying to be tough. Yes, he was being tough. But I think historians look back, he was being tough for a very good cause. So it's rather fitting that he's right in front of the Department of Education. So at first, this was they did the pass of this monument in 1999 while Bill Clinton was president. However, it took quite a while to build this monument. Frank Gehry was hired a few years later. Frank Gehry is one of the most famous modern architects that we know of, and there seems to be a group of veterans right down there. So we'll maintain the peace a little bit. Robert, did I get a haircut? No, I did not. He was responsible for the interstate highway system. Yep. He was responsible for the interstate highway system, which is the largest highway system in the entire, well, not the largest highway system in the entire world, but the biggest American public project of all history, if you adjust for inflation. So it was a massive undertaking. All right, since the veterans are over there, I'll wait until maybe they head out. But let's, in the meanwhile, do a bench test and see how this monumental bench stands up to the other monumental benches we've been to. So let's try Eisenhower's bench. I like Ike, but will I like this bench? That's the true test. It's cold. It's cool. It's cool. It retains that nice. I'm gonna remove my mask. I'm pretty far away from people. It's cool. It retains that kind of cold weather feel. So it's nice. The actual rock is a little bit porous, so it looks cold and hard, but it's actually nice and comfy. There's like a small little amount of comfiness to it, but the back is very uncomfortable. It's very uncomfortable. But of course, you're here to contemplate. You're not here to relax and chill in front of Eisenhower's monument. You're here to have quiet contemplation as you think upon Eisenhower's very last words. Because as you sit in this bench, you have to remember that Eisenhower set a very high benchmark for presidents and a presidential attitude when it comes to running the country. Eisenhower was a 5-star general, but he was all about peace. And in his final farewell speech, saying goodbye to this country as his term ended, he noted that the country was in danger of becoming highly involved in the military-industrial complex, which was our military being driven by commerce. And when military is driven by commerce, it's profitable to go into war. Thus, as I'm sitting in this bench, I feel good. So I would give this bench, it's a monumental bench. So monumental benches get a little bit of a pass because they're in honor of something interesting, something respected. I would give this bench, because it's monumental and because it's right by Eisenhower's honoring a very great president, I think, I would give it a nice 8 out of 10 for this monumental bench. All right. So yeah, they were indeed veterans. Seems like it was a group of veterans that knew each other. They just met up here and they kind of went their own different paths. They look like they were probably aged from either Korea or Vietnam. Might be older, yeah. There's one gentleman who looks like might be older, so it might be from World War II, maybe. They're already into their 90s. Am I heading back to New York City today? No, tomorrow I'm heading back. Today's the last day of live video. What's oh, I don't know. Maybe Ethiopian. My grandmother used to say you'll get piles if you sit on a cold bench. Looks like marble, which could feel soft. Yep, it does feel soft. It's 8 out of 10 for the bench review. It's monumental, so it gets a little bit of a pass. Oh, Ike has a memorial. Yep. Vietnam War started with Eisenhower. Interesting. Interesting, yes. Please let me know a little bit more about that. So here's Ike. Now, I just said the word Ike a few times if someone's not aware of American history. Ike was his nickname. And during his campaign, it was basically the slogan, I like Ike. That's it. I like Ike. Do you know what piles are? No, I have no idea what they are, Robert. Sure, Lisa, yes. The text reads, we look upon this shaken earth and we declare our firm and fixed purpose, the building of a peace with justice in a world where moral law prevails. His second inaugural address. This is so impressive. Very beautiful statue, a little bit larger than life. Piles are hemorrhoids. I see. It's empty. I'm gonna step on here. I wanna see how, yep. I'm 6 feet tall. So you can imagine how high Ike is over here. I'm not sure how tall he was in real life. If anyone knows, let me know in the comments. But the statue is about 9 feet. This is a good photo opportunity, by the way. What's the big building in the background? Department of Education. Very symbolic. I'm very, very small. Yeah, guys, I've been lying to you the entire time. I'm actually 5'4". Dwight D. Eisenhower. I went to see more of DC this week because of you. Oh, I'm so glad, Joe. Thought you were going to do some parkour. It's not that type of channel. Oh, here it is. Okay, here it is. No, everyone. I was just joking. I'm really 6 feet tall. Six feet tall. Exactly 6 feet tall. Farewell address, January 17th, 1961. Okay, got a screenshot. Awesome. So I'm going to read this. I'm the same height as Action Kid. I'm a bit taller. But this farewell address is very important because Eisenhower wasn't, I'm joking everyone, I'm 6 feet. I was just joking, I'm 6 feet. He wasn't known as a good speaker. He wasn't known as like the best orator. So, you know, his speeches are not really kind of taken down in history, but this farewell address is. Despite him not being the best speaker, and if you listen to the farewell address, he stumbles a little bit, just like I do while I'm talking, but he had it written, so he did stumble a little bit in his speech. But regardless, he had such a powerful message with that speech. And listening to him makes me really, really be appreciative when presidents are contemplative and introspective, not just about their own personal lives, but introspective about the job that they incur. They're introspective about the wars that they have chosen to get into. They're introspective about the state of our country, our nation, not just tied with politics and trying to assume more power, but also introspective about the ties with business, with commerce, with power that's not just concentrated in Capitol Hill, but with power concentrated in the money that's handed over. So let me read this speech. And I think it was written by the heart. It definitely sounds that way, because great comment, Mags, because when Eisenhower spoke of these things, they were very unpopular with the powers that be. Similar presidents afterwards have spoken similar things, Jimmy Carter being one, John F. Kennedy being another one. And John F. Kennedy, no longer around with us, and Jimmy Carter was only a single-term president. So interesting that speaking about these things end up becoming very unpopular in high positions of power. So let me read it to you. Throughout America's adventure in free government, our basic purposes have been to keep the peace, to foster progress and human achievement, and to enhance liberty, dignity, and integrity among people and among nations. A vital element in keeping the peace is our military establishment. Our arms must be mighty, ready for instant action, so that no potential aggressor may be tempted to risk his own destruction. This conjunction of an immense military establishment and a large arms industry is new in the American experience. We recognize the imperative need for this development, and yet we must not fail to comprehend its grave implications. In the councils of government, we must guard against the acquisition of unwanted influence, whether sought or unsought, by the military-industrial complex, akin to and largely responsible for the sweeping changes in our industrial military posture has been the technological revolution during recent decades. It is the task of statesmanship to mold, to balance, and to integrate these and other forces, new and old, within the principles of our democratic system, ever aiming toward the supreme goals of our free society. We pray that all peoples will come to live together in peace, guaranteed by a binding force of mutual respect and love. I must say, there are so many great speeches out there by a handful of presidents. But when I read this, it doesn't seem like pure poetry, like some other presidents. And it doesn't seem like lip service. It seems like a president who's very well aware of the reality of the nation he was controlling at that time, very well aware of the trajectory of this nation and not hiding it whatsoever, but putting it bluntly in front of the faces of American people all around this nation and telling them, hey, this country could go down a very dark path, but if we learn from it, we can proceed to spreading love across the world. I love how he ends with love. It's a very powerful message. Let's continue walking around. tried Salvadorian pupusas? Asks Tony. No, not here. Is Salvadorian food known here in DC? Impressive monuments, yes. Haiti says, I just tolerate history because of you and beautiful architecture. All right, I'm glad. The statue of Mao is 120 feet. All right. All right, before the other tourists come, let's go up here and stand close to these guys. Here's Ike. So we saw Ike as a statesman, president of the United States. And here we see Ike, Eisenhower, as a 5-star general. Cool statue, I love it. A beautiful statue. So Frank Gehry designed this. If you don't know what Frank Gehry is, he's known for all the wavy buildings. The one in New York, he's known for that wavy building. He's also known for the wavy building of the Walt Disney Concert Hall in Los Angeles. And he's done many other buildings. Let me know what other Frank Gehry buildings are. Now, Frank Gehry actually had no idea what Eisenhower, who he was, what he had doing. He really didn't know too much about Eisenhower. But when he was called upon to compete for the competition, he started reading the biography of Eisenhower, and he felt absolutely compelled to do it. Now, Frank Gehry, for some context, is 91 years old right now. 91. He's significantly old for an architect, still working architect. I think there's very few architects that continue working beyond their 80s. So he was compelled to finish this, despite a bunch of opposition from including the Eisenhower family, who weren't feeling the design. To them, it seemed a little bit too simple, a little bit abstract, to congressional powers as well. There was so much opposition. That's why it took so long to build this statue. He also built the Guggenheim in Bilbao, Spain. Thank you. Do I have a farewell address before I leave DC? Asked Ronan. maybe Ronan. Maybe I'll give an official speech. So this screen was implemented by Frank Gehry because of the building behind it. It's very ugly. Yeah, it's ugly. I think I'm comfortable with saying it's ugly. Let me know what you think. I think it looks ugly. It's like nothing. The building doesn't say anything. It looks very bureaucratic. Gehry said that it looked very bureaucratic, and that's why this screen is kind of to block that view, make this area a little bit more pleasant. So up here it says, the tide has turned. The free men of the world are marching together to victory. D-Day address to the troops, June 6, 1944. It looks simple and dignified. Yes. So, Susan Eisenhower was one of the women of the Eisenhower family that came to the dedication back in September. So, she ended up recounting, she studies Eisenhower's career, and she ended up recounting what she heard from her grandfather saying about a monument. Hey, you can build a monument of me as long as I'm not on a horse. And you guys wish. At least he's not on a horse, which is nice. "4K Wanderer says he designs for the interior to interact with the exterior by the way of windows." Interesting. I like that. That's cool. So let's read his words. Oh, I like this. Humility must always be the portion of any man who receives acclaim earned in blood of his followers and sacrifices of his friends. Conceivably, a commander might have been professionally superior. He may have given everything of his heart and mind to meet the spiritual and physical needs of his comrades. He may have written the chapter that will glow forever in the pages of military history. Still, even such a man, if he existed, would sadly face the facts that his honor cannot hide in his memories, that crosses marking the resting places of the dead. They cannot soothe the anguish of the widow or the orphan whose husband or father will not return. The only attitude in which a commander may with satisfaction receive the tributes of his friends is in the humble acknowledgement that no matter how unworthy he may be, his position is a symbol of great human forces that have labored arduously and successfully for a righteous cause. Unless he feels this symbolism and this rightness in what he has tried to do, and then he is disregarded full of courage, the fortitude and the devotion of the vast multitudes he has been honored to command. If all allied men and women that have served with me in this war can only know that it is they whom this august body is really honoring today, then indeed I will be content. No petty differences in the world of trade, traditions, or national pride should ever blind us to our identities and priceless values. If we keep our eyes on this guidepost, then no difficulties along our path of mutual cooperation can ever be insurmountable. Moreover, when this truth has permeated to the remotest hamlet and heart of all peoples, then indeed we may beat our swords into plowshares, and all nations can enjoy the fruitlessness of the earth. Guildhall Address, June 12th, 1945. So, let me tell you this. In our country, and any country throughout history, depends on the culture, of course, but America really embraces, and this is not the end of the monument, stay tuned, there's one little more part over here, I'll tell you. There is this sense that we want strong leadership, that we want people, our presidents, our Congress, and our senators, and our business leaders to be strong-armed. But he's a good example. That speech he wrote, or I'm not sure if he wrote it, but he definitely said it. That speech of Eisenhower shows that power, being strong, being a leader, is not equivalent with bullying, with lying, with trying to bend the truth in your favor. That being strong is not equated with warring, with battling, with showing military personnel. And that's very interesting. He was getting to a nuance right there, saying that when blood is spilled, it's in the responsibility of the man who is responsible. It's funny because during the invasion of D-Day, his granddaughter also recounts that she found a letter that wasn't sent. But the letter was written just in case D-Day was lost. And of course, that battle, as you can see in the film Saving Private Ryan, is bloody. It's a terrible, terrible battle. And in this letter, he said to Congress that because it was lost, he takes full and sole responsibility for how it went. Of course, that letter was never sent because he ended up winning D-Day. But that's damn interesting. A man who was willing to take the fall, to take the responsibility for a potential failure that could have happened if the battle's tide went the other way. Of course, so many other factors could have been involved in the battle going the other way. As we learned in the War of 1812, or as you might have learned with the Mongolian invasion in Japan, or the Spanish Armada trying to invade England, sudden storms can come and turn the battle the other way. Certain things can be unanticipated. There's so many factors, and of course one man is ever responsible fully for everything. No one man can predict the weather, no one man can predict thousands of things that are happening at the same time. But regardless of that, regardless of any potential force of nature, he was willing to take responsibility. That shows a very strong leader right there, which is needed nowadays. We need a leader who's willing to take responsibility. It's sad that some leaders, some people in power, whoever they might be, business, politics, could be nonprofits, are unwilling to take responsibility because they blame it on something that's out of their hands. So I do appreciate that they built this statue in Eisenhower, and as I mentioned in the beginning of this broadcast, he might be one of the very last presidents in the near future, maybe for decades to come, that will have a memorial built in his honor, because both sides of the aisle agree that this guy was a great leader. Stand up. He was a Republican by name, but both Democrats and Republicans enjoy him. So there is one little piece of the sculpture which I want to show you. And no, it's not this cylinder that looks like a smokestack. Nope, it's right down here. And not today sounds well spoken. Yes, thank you, not today. Where's my top fan gone? Oh, I don't know, Rosanna. I have no control over that. But I assume once you comment a little bit more, you'll get it back. Siempre tantos interesantes videos. Oh, qué bien, Gonza. Qué bien que te cantan mis videos. Gonza says, always interesting videos. Here it says General Dwight D. Eisenhower, Supreme Commander, Allied Expeditionary Force. So over there we saw that they marked that he was the president in that other cylinder. And over here, this is 1944, 1945. He was the general. 5 stars. 5 stars. If Dwight D. Eisenhower had a Yelp page, I would give him 5 stars. And shout out to AJ. AJ, thank you so much for tuning in. And did the Red Scare start with him? Well, I don't know exactly. I admittedly didn't go that deep into his history. So I only know superficially about Dwight D. Eisenhower, his broad strokes of his career. So let me know. I'm not sure if the Red Scare term started with him. It might start with Truman. Truman, I think, was a little bit more of aggressive president. But of course, do your research. I can only research so much. I'm not a historian. I'm not a journalist. So do your research. But I think Truman was a little bit more of an aggressive president. That's why he went into the Korean War. But luckily, he wasn't so aggressive like his general under him, General MacArthur, who wanted to put nuclear bombs across all of China. So we kind of skipped, got saved from terrible war. So Dwight D. Eisenhower often remarked in a few of his speeches that he still felt like the small little boy from Kansas. He is a true rags to riches. Might not be the best term because it wasn't indeed about the riches, but indeed about being a great leader. Story where he came from a humble upbringing in Kansas. And this is him as a little child. Sitting like a little kid would, looking out towards the future. And here it says, because no man is really a man who has lost out of himself all of the boy. I want to speak first of the dreams of a barefoot boy. Frequently, they are to be of a streetcar conductor, or he sees himself as the town policeman. Above all, he may reach to a position of locomotive engineer. But always in his dreams is that day when he finally comes home to a welcome from his own hometown. Because today that dream of mine of 45 years or more ago has been realized beyond the wildest stretches of my own imagination. I come here first to thank you, to say the proudest thing I can claim is that I am from Abilene. Sorry if I mispronounced that. Homecoming speech, Abilene, Kansas, June 22nd, 1945. So this is how he felt, still as that little boy from Kansas. Despite all the power he accrued, despite him being one of the very first leaders of America, being a massive superpower, and still slightly before the Russians end up developing their own nuclear weapons, I think, if I'm correct. Yeah, it should be around 1 or 2 years he was in power for that. That means US was in the top of the top. He had all the power, literally all the power in the world, the power to destroy, the power to do whatever he would want to with the world, but yet he chose to stay the peace. Now, originally this statue was going to be right in the middle of the statesman and the general, as we saw a little bit further down. But the family was very against this because they thought to themselves, this boy did not look forward to be the general of a very bloody war. So it didn't seem quite fitting. Gary had a little bit more nuanced interpretation of it. He saw as like this little boy, he still felt like this little boy despite him being the statesman and the general. So they came to a compromise and they put the little boy sculpture off to the side, not to kind of intone that a little boy wanted to become a general of an extremely bloody war, of the bloodiest war of human history, period, actually. So there it is. Yeah, that's the Eisenhower Memorial. I hope you enjoy it. It is a very powerful memorial once you start really learning about Eisenhower's career. I think it's rather fitting that he is not on the horse, and it's rather fitting that that the memorial is simple, has a simplicity to it, but kind of a poignancy. So that, I think, is makes it worth it. For our last stop, let's go just one more block down and see a very interesting sculpture, kind of a little bit more lighthearted, in front of the Hirshhorn Hirshhorn Museum. So I hope you enjoy that. I'm glad he isn't on the horse or some extravagant memorial. Yeah, likewise. Yeah. This is the Museum of Air and Space. They're under construction right here. Wendy, just one more live stream. 3 p.m. 3 p.m. Just right after this one, going to the Museum of American History. So let me know what you think now that I got in a little bit more into the history. Let me know what you think of the Eisenhower Memorial. I'm curious to hear your thoughts. Hello, Urbanist. Where do they get money for all these free museums? Says Sam. Sam, I'm not entirely sure, but I think they're a non-profit organization, so they get public funding. And remember, they're doing a very good thing. They are making available our American history, natural history, the history of space and engineering to anyone. That is very powerful because there are people in this country that don't have the means to pay $27 to go to the Metropolitan Museum of Art in New York. There's people in this country that unfortunately don't have the means to pay $40 to see some other museum in Europe. I think it's good that we at least have one city in the United States of America where people of all income brackets, of all positions in life, can come and learn and see for themselves history. I think that's a very important thing. So I don't know the details, but I'm glad it is the case. And if it does come from my taxpayer money, well, so be it. I'm more than happy to pay some taxpayer money to have a free museum for all. Yeah, I did pass here through with the bus tour, yeah. This is Independence Avenue. All museums are currently in serious trouble with the pandemic. Yeah, unfortunately. It's sad. Is it cold weather? It's cold, AJ. 50 degrees. 55, 56 degrees. They're indirectly paid for by the tourism dollars they generate. Oh, cool. Thank you, 4K. Yeah, same thing. Well, the tourists pay also buy merchandise and other things. All right, so I feel bad for the guy who rented a car the other day and he was driving around trying to go to the museum. Of course, the museum is closed, but as he approaches this huge Hirshhorn museum that looks like a gigantic UFO, this poor car is destroyed by a huge boulder that flies out of nowhere. Of course, that's myth. I'm just making up a story. This is a sculpture of a destroyed vehicle. Asteroid hit, yeah, asteroid it hit, yeah. Hey, Madeline, nice to see you here. Lori, good luck too, as well. Have I been able to find a nice cardigan in Washington, D.C.? I have. Irene says it speaks to people. It's not just a monument there. It has a saying. Maybe it has to do, she's referring to the Eisenhower. Maybe it has to do with the way they put it that makes it important. A lot of their museums are selling their pieces, says Judith. The buildings on the street seem to go on forever. They do. Some of them are ground scrapers, which are very, very long buildings. Do you return to NYC this evening? No, tomorrow. Great history lesson, says Kay. Oh, so glad you enjoyed the history lesson. Chrysler, not surprised. We had crash test. That's a good one. We want to see you in New York with your new cardigan. Yes, you will. You can. Please do not touch, it says. And do not touch the artwork. Don't touch the artwork. So, within this work of art, there is a secret meaning. It's not the eyes that someone painted on it, because that's not the original intention. Someone painted eyes and pink lips on this rock, but that's not the secret meaning. The secret meaning with this sculpture is twofold. It's a rock, and it's on top of a car. But what car is it? Let me know in the comments if anyone's into cars. What car is it? Ronald says, how would you explain that to an insurance agent? Indeed, how would you explain it to an insurance agent? I don't know. What car is this? It's a Plymouth. That's right, Joe. It's a Plymouth, and there's a rock on it. Plymouth Rock. If you're not familiar with American history, at least that portion, Plymouth Rock is the first area that the Puritans came on the Mayflower. And I think it was the 1600s, if I'm correct. Plymouth Rock. Really clever. It's a Chrysler Plymouth. And time to do it for a thumbnail. Let's do a thumbnail. There we go. Is that a good thumbnail? Let me know. All right, everyone. This is let me show you the final stop. Let's go right in the middle of the mall and show you the mall. To end this tour, this is my last day in Washington, D.C. I hope you enjoyed it. Ariel says it's not a good it's not, Bernard. It's not. Why is it? Oh, interesting. So Bernal says that according to that it is called the Spirit, and it's both the model of the Dodge and the volcano from where the rock is quarried. Interesting. So is that we didn't land on Plymouth Rock. Plymouth Rock landed on us, says quoting Denzel Washington, or false quoting Denzel. We're very happy to see you in DC and in Boston and places like these. I'm so glad. Let's go see the mall for one final view of the Grand National Mall, America's front yard. The invention of the rock makes it look so. It is not based on Plymouth. So that is not the Chrysler Plymouth. It's the Chrysler Spirit. All right. Interesting. Bernard, let me know if that's the official explanation on the site. I'm going to put on my mask. Here's a little outdoor viewing area of all the plants. I'm not sure from where. Susie says you're wiped out from all this traveling, virtual traveling. That's funny. Oh, thank you, Bernard. Okay. So a correction. It is not a Plymouth, and is not supposed to be a pun on Plymouth Rock. Though Chrysler didn't make a car very similar to that car called the Plymouth. It is actually the Chrysler Spirit. It's the Dodge Spirit. It was the Dodge Spirit or the Chrysler Spirit? Let me know. And yeah, there we go. So is a little bit more nuanced meaning, not quite a pun. It was by artist Jimmy Durham. Thank you so much, Bernard. And is known for his sense of humor and irreverence. Thank you for these DC tours, says Catherine. I'm going to Plymouth Rock and I like that better. I'm glad you do. All right, I'm very confused. It looked like the Chrysler emblem. Was that the Dodge emblem? I'm very confused. But thank you everyone for clarifying. Let me know what is the official version. Oh wow, they have salvia here. Huh. Nice garden, yeah. Wow, it's beautiful. Nice little secret garden here. All right, so Bernard is looking at the official Smithsonian site. Thank you, Bernard. You want to try a garden bench? All right, let's see a garden bench. Okay, everyone. This is probably the last bench review of DC. A garden bench. Let's see if it reaches the benchmark of being a good bench. In order to do a proper bench test, you have to sit down slowly. No. No. Not quite, not quite. There was employees right there, so I don't want to offend them as they're working on a very beautiful garden. But while the garden is beautiful, the bench is not. The bench is very uncomfortable, both the seating and the backside. Beautiful garden, but terrible bench. Just terrible bench. That is not a garden for benching. It's a garden for standing. So everyone, right here is the National Mall. And let's go right now. That odd artwork was part of the museum. They have a sculpture garden now. I think the sculpture garden was always there. It's just the only part that's open in the museum. And that red sculpture is made by Mark de Swedwell. I covered him a few times. He's from Astoria, Queens. I think he's about 87, 88 years old right now. Right there, the nation's capital. Everyone, thank you so much for watching these Washington, D.C. videos. I hope you enjoyed this virtual exploration of our nation's capital. Here to finish off this series, and hopefully with one more last bonus video of the American History Museum, if I can do a live stream inside. I bid you adieu. Thank you so much for tuning in. Here was Washington, D.C. Am I going to miss it? Asked someone earlier. I think I saw what I need to see from the city. So I feel satisfied with this trip personally. And I think you will too if you visit for like a week. For me, you know, it's a city. I saw it for a week. I'm okay with it. And it was a very enjoyable trip. So I hope you enjoyed it. And Ariel really started the talk with cars. Yeah, I did. Yeah, everyone, thank you for clarifying the cars. Pardon my mistake with the cars. I heard that story from the tour guide. I thought it was a true story. But of course, I did not do further research into that. So sometimes it happens. Again, with these videos, do your own research afterwards. Everyone, this was Washington, D.C. Do a farewell speech before I go, asked Ronald. Well, everyone, in our nation's capital, remember that despite the powers that be might be resorting to falsehoods and conspiracies and bullying, our nation ultimately started from very humble origins. From our very first president, George Washington, who actually was pretty uncomfortable with being president, pretty uncomfortable with maintaining power, and decided to maintain power for only 2 terms, 8 years. And with that humbleness, even though the U.S. grew to becoming a massive superpower, for about a decade, it was basically the only superpower, and then we were accompanied by another superpower, and right now we seem to be accompanied by another superpower coming along. But despite us being accompanied as one of the top superpowers in the world, we still started with humble origins. And that's the dichotomy of the United States of America. It's both extreme, extravagant, large, huge, but also personal, warm, friendly, and filled to the very core with a humble attitude that this power might not last forever. And I hope we, as a nation, as a people, return to those humble origins. Because power doesn't last forever. Youth or beauty or money or wealth or status never lasts forever. We must enjoy the very moment on hand and be respectful to all those powers that came before us, ancient Rome, Imperial England, maybe the Renaissance, maybe ancient China, whatever. All those powers that came before and also fell. All those powers in the future that will come and also fall. As with the nature of all things, nothing lasts forever in this earthly realm. So let's be a little bit more humble about this. Let's admit to our mistakes. Let's assume responsibility and not just blame something external out there, force of nature, a disease, or whatever. There is no point in blaming someone else. Just be humble about it. So with humbleness, thank you so much for watching. I appreciate all of you, and keep being awesome, and always keep on exploring. Have a great day, everyone. Have a good day, everyone. Bye.